Shalom, this is Hudson Institute's Deep Dive from Jerusalem and Washington, D.C. And in today's edition, we're going to discuss the whole array of events that took place since the 12th of this month when Israel launched its preemptive strikes against the Ayatollah regime's military, nuclear, and other types of infrastructure. But before all that, let's introduce our experts for today, starting with Dr. Jonathan Schechter, who is a senior fellow at Hudson Institute, formerly the chief policy advisor at the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem. Next to him, we have Brigadier General in Reserve, Dr. Amnon Sofrin, who formerly served as the Chief of Intelligence of the Mossad Intelligence Directorate, as well as a senior officer at the IDF Intelligence Directorate as well. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Rafael Bardahi, formerly a national security advisor of the Kingdom of Spain, currently CEO of Worldwide Strategy. It's great to see all three of you. And I'd like to start with you, Dr. Schechter. Give us a little bit of an overview of the lead up into the events and what should we focus on as we progress our analysis for today.
So I think the lead up, Jonathan, thank you for having me on. I think the lead up needs to be looked at in from two perspectives. One is the short term, and one is the long term lead up. The short term lead up, we saw this escalation in recent months. Certainly since the 7th of October, we had these two major missile attacks from Iran directly to Israel in April of last year, and then again in October. We also saw increasing Iranian violations of its nuclear obligations. There was a very severe report from the IAEA Secretary General last week laying out Iran's non-compliance with its international nuclear obligations, which of course go way beyond POA and extended to its obligations under the NPT. But of course, if we look at the longer view, I think there's really a direct path to what's happening now in Iran from the conclusion of the JCPOA 10 years ago.
Thank you, Dr. Schechter. Dr. Bardahi, when we're looking specifically at the various statements coming out of Jerusalem, we hear Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu highlighting not only Iran's decision to race towards nuclear weapon capabilities, but also its efforts to really size or ratchet up the size of its arsenal of ballistic missiles, conventional ballistic missiles, despite the fact that many of those projectiles also have the capacity of carrying potentially nuclear payloads, and highlighting the oversaturation that they're intending to achieve with just a couple of years, hoping to attain over 20,000 ballistic missiles, something that a small country as Israel could not sustain.
Yes, definitely. I think the international community has been focused mainly on the nuclear program, but there were also two other legs complementary to the aggressive strategy of Iran. One was the use of proxies to encircle with the Ring of Fire Israel from Lebanon to Gaza. Thank God, the Israel government and Israel society has been dealing with them since October the 7th, and very successfully, I have to say. And the third leg or component of the Iranian strategy was the delivery capability, the missiles, the ballistic missiles and drones. No country can accept the threat of thousands of rockets being pointed and shoot potentially at it. So I think Israel has no other choice and no more options, because also the Western countries, starting with the United States under Biden, made all possible options on the diplomatic front to fail. They didn't present a clear strategy where all options were on the table. They took aside and out of the picture the military options. So the world in general, and the Iranians in particular, felt emboldened against a Western civilization in decay. We have seen that in Russia and Ukraine. We are seeing this in China and Taiwan. And we saw that Iran and the region and Israel in particular. And I think the decision taken by the Prime Minister in Israel last Friday to strike and to initiate a campaign for dismantling and disrupting and destroying the nuclear program is a restoration on some faith and deterrence from the whole Western world. No? And we should appreciate that effort made by Israel alone.
General Sofrin, as somebody who has been both a chief of intelligence at Mossad as well as one of the chief intelligence officers at the IDF intelligence directorate, I'd like to congratulate you and, of course, Israel's defense establishment for really an impressive job on the first several days. Of course, we know how we went into it with both the RGC Commander-in-Chief, General Salami, alongside the Chief of General Staff of the Army, General Bagheri, and many others being eliminated in the first waves, but also now 4 days in, we're seeing a broad list of top commanders from all of Iran's defense and terror infrastructure, if I may refer it as such, since the United States did designate, of course, the RGC as a foreign terrorist organization. But nonetheless, I'd like to hear your perspective to the current state in which Israel is really pushing, unrelenting in a host of targets being destroyed just as we're speaking right now, actually.
I think when you look at the events of the last couple of days, we can understand that Israel has three main goals. First one is, of course, to eliminate as much as we can from the nuclear facilities of the nuclear program of Iran. We hit Isfahan, which is a conversion facility. We hit Natanz, the enrichment facility. We didn't hit yet Fordow, which is more complicated, and other facilities as well, like Parchin and others. The second issue is to eliminate people who are connected to what we call the weaponized system of the nuclear program, people who actually should have, in the end, integrate everything into one huge facility that can, of atomic facility or atomic bomb. And this is Faridun Abbasi and all the other scientists that were eliminated on the first strike. On the other hand, we can see that Israel is a little bit enlarging the envelope and trying to kill people that are belonging to the administration. That means we're trying to hit people that are senior within the administration as well, not only scientists or not only related to ballistic missiles or to nuclear program, but people who has a lot of status and a lot of influence on what we call the Supreme Leader, Khamenei, just like Salami and Bagheri and others that were eliminated as well. And that means that Israel is also trying to reduce the capability of the current regime to control Iran and to weaken what we call its ability to control the country and to raise up, if possible, people from Iran to begin violating or protesting against the regime. And the pressure from both sides, that is my belief, that this is the Israeli plan, in the end will weaken very much the regime, even can make it fall and be exchanged into something else.
Absolutely. This is something that I was actually asked over the course of the past several days, since Israel, of course, launched its attack, whether or not Israel had the intention of regime change. And ultimately, it's not a matter of intent, it's a matter of whether or not the people in Iran are going to pick up the baton and fulfill their end of the bargain, since ultimately it is in their hands to see those tyrants brought to justice for the atrocities committed not only on the entire region, with, of course, the various proxies under Iranian influence committing crimes of their own, but at the behest of the Ayatollah regime. But beyond that, also the crimes that the Ayatollah regime, the Basij forces and others have committed against the Iranian people, and that is, of course, in the hands of the Iranian people themselves. Now, Dr. Shechter, when we're looking on a broader perspective, of course, the United States is standing by Israel under U.S. Central Command leadership, really frustrating many of Iran's attempted attacks against Israel are indeed being thwarted not only by the Israeli air and missile defense systems as well as the Air Force, but also by U.S. Central Command. But nonetheless, there is a certain speculation with circulating reporting, backing it up somewhat with also additional data, that the United States is not intending to sit on the sidelines, but is trying to identify whether the time is right to enter also on the offensive. Now, would that be a safe assessment, or are we still going to see them prolong that deliberation somewhat longer?
I think there are a few different factors that will ultimately influence the American decision whether to get involved in offensive operations. There have already been reports about U.S. role and U.S. assistance in defensive operations and intercepting Iranian missiles and drones, which of course is an excellent thing. And I think one of the real achievements of the transfer of Israel into the Central Command area of responsibility a few years ago. I think on the military side, I think there's continued concern in the United States, and particularly in the Pentagon, about the possibility of Iranian attacks on U.S. forces and bases in the region. I think the U.S. is, of course, interested in preventing that and avoiding that. On the one hand, on the other hand, I think that in Iran, they know that if they were to do that, that would obligate the United States to get involved and could lead to a much greater use of force against them than what they're already experiencing. There's also the political factor. Right now, there seems to be conflicting pressures trying to be put on that they're trying to put on the president. On the one hand, he does have some very vocal support in Congress and from many of his supporters who are friends of Israel and supporters of the U.S.-Israel relationship, and some of that is coming from across the aisle as well. But then you have among the isolationists, led by, of course, Tucker Carlson, who this weekend advised the president to drop Israel. It was encouraging the president push back against that, and I think the president rightly said that a nuclear Iran, of course, will not lead to peace or to. And the truth is, if you look at any of the president's foreign policy goals, starting in the region, but going beyond, a nuclear Iran, of course, would undermine all of those things. So far, the president has pushed back forcefully and publicly against that sentiment. I think the more successful that this operation is, I think the more likely that others will want to help and get on board. But I also think it's still relatively early. There are still major milestones that need to be met before this. With all of the achievements of the first 4 days, there are still major things to be accomplished if this is to be deemed a success.
What amazes me most is the fact that people like this Tucker Carlson that you refer to, they are pushing back against any support to America's closest allies around the world, not just Israel. They're promoting and supporting America's adversaries around the world. They're fueling hatred against various communities in the United States, and then they claim to be America first, something that just I can't fathom how that makes any sense. They're undoubtedly not America first. They are, I want to keep it diplomatic in this session today, so we'll keep it in that. But Dr. Bardaki, we hear also French President Emmanuel Macron and Prime Minister Keir Starmer coming out in support of Israel, of course highlighting the hope to see a diplomatic resolution to the situation. But nonetheless, both countries are deploying quite the significant amount of assets into the region, including war assets, not only defensive. The offensive capabilities currently en route to the Middle East are quite quite impressive.
Indeed. I think one of the scenarios that the defense community in both countries has been using in the last year was the temptation by the Iran, if they decided to escalate, to close the Strait of Hormuz and to do a lot of damage into the sea lines of communication and the shipping. And I think much of the deployments that you are seeing now is in direct regard to protect the sea lines of communication and keep them open. Having said that, as we saw last year when Iran was launching hundreds of ballistic missiles, the French and the British forces helped Israel to intercept on flight the incoming missiles. So I think they are well disposed to that. Look, I think despite what many people are saying in Europe, we tend to see this situation as a winning strategy because we all understood and understand that Iran, with the possibility to develop a nuclear weapon, was unacceptable, was a real danger for the whole world. And what Israel is doing alone for the time being is a favor to all of us. So I think the minimum we can do is to prepare for contingencies if they arise, and the need to employ defensively or offensively any asset that can be deployed in the region. Even the European Union president has shown support for the Israeli actions, no? And when you see the difference in the attitude of the IDF, just targeting with excellence and pinpointing military assets and nuclear infrastructure, what you see in return is attacking civilian population by Iran. There is no doubt where the bad guys are and how to stop that. You know? And I think with time, the IDF will achieve many of the goals. And if needed, I think they can count on the future support of major allies as well. No?
I'd like to stay with you for a moment, Dr. Barahi, since you once told me as well here on the show that the last time you met with President Vladimir Putin of Russia as the National Security Advisor together with President Asnav, you asked him, namely Putin, about whether Moscow was concerned about a nuclear-armed Iran, to which, to your surprise, he responded by saying that he wasn't concerned because he believed Israel would deal with the issue. Well, what can you tell us about that, and to what degree is that still reflected in Moscow's position today?
Yeah, it was a question directly posed by the president of Spain and responded to him directly by Vladimir Putin. And he said, look, you don't have to worry about the nuclear Iran because the Israeli will never let them happen. And he also expressed his concern at the time, a few years ago when we had that conversation about the nuclear Iran. But the reality is that since Putin tried to invade Ukraine, the relationship with Iran has changed dramatically for the worse. No? Russia was dependent on many military help with drones, artillery, munition, and they have been forging a new relationship that I don't think make what he said years ago will be applicable today. Having said that, the option for Russia to interfere in the actions taken by Israel now are very limited, and I think one of the benefits also beyond the region of the Israeli strike against Iran is that the Ukrainians will have better time if they are not able to, again, fulfill the contract to provide drones and other artillery and other munition to Russian forces. No? So there are many benefits in this action which go beyond the scope of the nuclear program and beyond the relationship between Israel and Iran and the Gulf countries.
Thank you, Dr. Barahi. General Sofian, I'd like to ask you, continue on this same line. We do hear reports about China transferring all kind of, some say, military commodities or dual-use components for the purpose of sustaining its capacity to carry out attacks against Israel, of course within context of strategic power competition, alongside Pakistan that is also considering the transfer of ballistic missiles to help Iran fight Israel. Are those things that are truly currently taking place, or is this something that might be in the discussion right now with regard to something like this happening? And how would Israel respond?
If I may, before getting to answer your question, I would like to refer in one word to what happens in France. During this week and today, the ceremony, the great exhibition of what we call the La Bourget air show opened in France, in Paris. Now, all the Israeli defense companies have booths that were prepared in advance, demonstrating all kinds of weapon systems. Yesterday, the organizers came to our companies and asked them to remove all the attacking capabilities from our booths. The Director General of the Ministry of Defense of Israel refused to do so. And today, when they came this morning to open up the booth and to begin exhibiting, they found out that the whole Israeli companies' booths were blocked by walls, black walls, aside positioned there by the French government, and nobody could go in. So when you speak about the French assisting Israel or not, this is what you call very provisional. Now, referring to your question, first of all, Chinese has a lot of interest in Iran because of the fact that it is its main supplier on oil, and therefore they will do everything to preserve the capabilities and to keep this regime alive and kicking and alive. And therefore, they will try to assist them. And the rumors say that they try to deliver right now what we call anti-aircraft new weapon systems to be deployed in Iran to assist them defending against the Israeli strikes. I'm not sure this is the right answer. I know that there are rumors about it. I cannot verify that this is what is really going on. I know that the Russians cannot assist right now because of their limitation, because they are engaged with what's happening in Ukraine. And the third issue about Pakistan declared that if the Iranians will ask for assistance, they will consider assisting them and delivering them what we call long-range missiles. But nevertheless, just yesterday evening, they closed the border between the two countries and they don't allow anyone to go in and out. So this is what we call kind of declaration that is what we call dependent. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure that they are going to transfer weapon systems. And if yes, I believe that Israel is going to try to interfere and to try to deny it on the way to Iran. On the other hand, about the Chinese anti-aircraft system, if they are being deployed, they will be treated just like the others have been treated before.
Indeed. And no amount of R&D is going to pay back for those. But nonetheless, we have 1 minute for each of you. I do hear that Iran's long-range ballistic missiles stockpile is slowly but surely being depleted, with only a couple of hundred of those ballistic missiles left in order to sustain merely a couple of days. People are talking between 3 days to 4 or 5 days of those type of munitions. The Iranians might divert to asymmetrical warfare, which is something that Israel also needs to consider, of course. But Dr. Schechter, we'll start with you.
Well, I think asymmetric warfare is something that Iran has practiced for a very long time, particularly through its proxies. If you had conversations over the last several years about the possibility of the use of force to address the nuclear threat, one of the great concerns in Israel and elsewhere was about asymmetric threats, particularly through the proxies, through Hezbollah and through Hamas. Of course, both of those forces have been weakened substantially because of the war taking place since October 7th. So I think that Iran, it's certainly part of Iran's playbook. How much it's able to do that I think is an open question given everything that's transpired. But of course, you can do, a country like Iran can do tremendous damage to soft targets and to civilians in Israel and around the world, and that's something that, of course, Israel and everybody else has to keep in mind.
Dr. Bardaki?
Well, I think I don't like to be over-optimistic when talking about war. Finding and destroying mobile launchers are a difficult task. Thanks God, the Air Force of Israel is flying over Iran with almost freedom of action, and that will degrade even further any countermeasure that can be taken by Iranian forces. But I think what is more important now is to allow Israel time to achieve all the goals that are set as this campaign proceeds, and not calling for restraint on both sides or a diplomatic solution. It's not the time. The time is for the IDF to keep acting until everything is destroyed.
General Sofrin?
We have great military achievements so far, and we have to keep on hitting as much as we can. We might take into consideration that we are not fighting no Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis in Yemen. We are fighting a huge country with over 100 million people and a lot of resources and a lot of capabilities and a lot of what we call long-range breathing and capabilities to go on fighting for a long time, and it's not in our favor.
Thank you, General Sofrin. I'd like immediately also to thank Dr. Bardaki and Dr. Schechter for all of your valuable insights. And I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. This has been Hudson Institute's Deep Dive from Jerusalem and Washington, D.C. Until our next edition. Shalom.
Shalom, I'm Danny Ayalon, former Israeli ambassador to the United States, former deputy foreign minister and member of Knesset. Today, I'm very privileged to be hosting TV7's Middle East Review and also being a panelist of the various shows of TV7, which I find the most enlightening, most educating if you really want to understand the world, the global scene as well as the regional scene of the Middle East. It is worthwhile to watch TV7.
For more of TV7's productions and editorials, we invite you to visit our website at TV7israelnews.com.